You're listening to the unofficial podcast of Patreon. Patreon Podcast. Creative people pursuing their passions.
Hey, this is Patreon Podcast, and my name is Chris Cowan. I am your host for this episode, and really most episodes. This is Patreon Podcast. It's the unofficial podcast of Patreon, where you get to meet creative and inspiring people. You can find out how you can be a part of their project, and maybe even get a little bit of insight into your own creative journey as well. I am super stoked to have with me Kurt Sasso. Did I say your name right, Kurt? I'm terrible with names.
You did? Yeah, no, trust me. Yeah. It's hard, and some people with one.
I always get my name mispronounced, so I feel particularly empathetic towards anyone else whose names are frequently mispronounced. I generally, my name is Cowan, but people call it Cohen because I guess they don't want to offend me by calling me a cow. Sometimes it's Cohen, and
Interesting.
But
I'll tell you a story about name mixing up later on the show, especially with a famous person that I interviewed that didn't go very well. So.
Oh, yeah. So, Kurt, you are on Patreon touting a. I totally just lost my cursor here. There we go. You are on Patreon touting your Two Geeks Talking podcast, which is it's not just a podcast though, right? It's also a video series, right?
Well, yeah, it's a combination of things. It's an entertainment industry interview show where we interview creative people in the comics, film, TV, movie, and video game industries. It was originally an audio-only podcast, and as of 2010, we switched to video with extracting the audio to our iTunes aspect, and it's really expanded our viewer base. It's given us a lot more flexibility and mobility. And it's been a test of how technology has changed over the last couple of years as well too, for the better. So it's pretty amazing actually.
Awesome. So, and when you started doing this, it was mainly focused on comics, right? You started interviewing people in the comic industry. I think you mentioned before we started recording that you kicked things off in a large way, doing interviews at a convention?
No, actually. The conventions
make stuff crap up about you then. That's
conventions came later. If I started on the convention circuit right away, I think things would have been a little different. No, I originally, but thank you, I appreciate it. I like that though. I wish I was in that aspect, but no. We started off Two Geeks Talking has had many different names over the years, but TGT has always been the short form moniker of it. But I started on August 8th, 2008, so it's 888. It's pretty easy to remember that way. And for the first couple of years,
my anniversary was that easy to remember.
You know. And I wish my birthday was that easy to remember as well too. But it is what it is. But no, the original focus was on webcomics and comics that are online back in 2008. That came about while I was helping a friend with a website, a webcomics database, and I mentioned to him, I go, you know, we should do a podcast to interview these amazing and talented and creative people that I just wanted to, rub out proverbial elbows with, because they were like really famous and I idolized them, and then he said to me, "Go ahead, I'm too busy." So I'm like, "Oh, well, okay, well I guess I better learn to make a podcast." And first 60 interviews were with my good friend and co-host at the time, Phil, and he went off to do his own thing after episode 60, and I continued on the show. And I was really surprised about the amount of guests that I was getting at the beginning of the show. Like I would have never thought, if you've ever heard of the webcomic Girl Genius.
Yeah, that rings a bell. Yeah.
Yeah. Phil Folio is the creator of that, and I got him on episode 10, and that just blew my mind. Being 10 episodes in, getting such a big name that is so well known in the community, and I was like, I just sent him an email and he came on. So I might be rambling, so reel me in if you.
No, that's great. I think it's you're getting ahead of my questions because I was going to ask for some milestones, and you're kind of getting to those milestones. See, that's because you're so used to interviews that you conduct that you're just like, I know, I don't need him to even ask me. I could just fill them out, and that's great. it makes my job a lot easier, honestly.
Well, I'm trying to keep you in mind as well too here, but pardon me if I name drop. So.
No, that's totally great. That it's all about name dropping and shameless self promotion. That's my motto, honestly.
Yeah, and I'm Canadian, so we don't technically self promote as well as we should. So it's all good.
You mean America's hat? Sorry, I just.
Yeah, well, at least we're not America's pants or whatever. Milestone-wise, I'll let you ask that question later on. But what else do you got for me here? Because I can talk about whatever.
Well, before we get too far into your particular project, although I do have to stop and I do have to ask. You said currently the moniker for your show has always been TGT. Mm-hmm. And my imagination's running wild. So what are some of the other things that it stood for before Two Geeks Talking?
Originally, back in 2008, it was TGT Webcomics, which TGT really stands for Two Guys Talking. Okay. And the letter 2, not the word 2, not the number 2. That people get that confused all the time. It would have been 2 as in the number 2 geeks talking, or 2 guys talking like that, but someone grabbed the URL way before I did, and I was like, oh, great.
So and then what happened? You finally just realized, I'm a geek. I'm just going to wear that label proudly. And so that's what.
Sorry. It kind of went like this. It was TGT Webcomics. Then once I branched in 2010 into the other medias, I changed it to TGT Media. So that was just something I held on for a number of years too. And most recently, I try to keep myself current as much as I can. So I needed a bit of a name change. So Two Geeks Talking, Two Guys Talking. I had people saying, well, what does TGT stand for? And I had to really kind of think upon myself and really say, well, what does it really mean? What does it stand for? And geek or geekdom is kind of a very generic term. It's all encompassing, similar to nerds, similar to everything like that. Anyone can be a self-professed geek because it's their passion for what they love. Yeah. And me, I love a bunch of stuff. On sci-fi, fantasy, blah blah blah. We'll get into that after. I'm sure you'll ask a question. And so I just decided, after kind of asking the community in general, I was like, hey guys, what if I change the name, what do you like? Do you like Two Guys Talking? Do you like Two Geeks Talking? And I gave a couple of others, and they're like, Two Geeks Talking seems, pretty good. So.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I think it probably is more accurately reflects kind of your subject matter, right? And more accurately reflects probably the people that you're interviewing, since a lot of what you're discussing, comics, doesn't get much more geeky than that. Not that I'd know.
No, not from
Not that I have my office decorated with old comics or anything.
No, not at all.
For those of you in the audio podcast version of this episode, yes, I do in fact have comics decorating the background.
It's an impressive collection, I have to admit.
Thank you. They're all unoriginals. And then on the left, since I'm giving you a tour of my office, there's a drawing that my son drew of Superman on the wall. You can kind of see. So I'm pretty proud of it. that.
Well, I have a friend of mine did the Joker from The Killing Joke in ink, so I got that back there.
Yeah, total. Nice. That's cool. Likes your true subject matter. So I think that's great. So before we get any further onto that, let's talk about you. Tell me about you. Who are you? Is this what you do, or do you have another job that your secret identity?
Job. That's funny. No, I'm. Let's see. I've done many things in my lifetime. So I guess originally I was I went to school for computer science. I was a programmer, system administrator for a good 15 or so years. Got really bored with the industry itself, the same 4 questions being asked over and over again. And by the way, the IT crowd is very accurate. Did you unplug it or plug it back in?
Oh, I trust me. I know. I've worked in customer service for the past almost 9 years, and yeah, it's very accurate. And actually, even I'm still at home. I'm still very much because my wife comes to me with any technical troubleshooting, and always my first answer is, "Have you tried turning it off and on again?" That's a terrible impression of Roy from IT Crowd, but that's always my response 9 times out of 10. So yeah, that's funny. So you were,
yeah, that's definitely right there. I was doing that, and 2008 I started the podcast, and I was doing that while I was doing, ironically, customer support in Lenovo and AT&T Uverse.
Oh, cool.
Trust me, the stories I can tell, and I won't, but it's still funny.
Probably swap some at some point, yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. We should totally write a book there, and I could get my all Lenovo guys to help out with that too. Yeah, laptop through a window of an ex-wife. Anyhow, moving on. But I was doing the podcast, and I was saving up my vacation time during while I was working call center stuff. And every August, that would roll around. I would go up to Toronto, go up to Fan Expo, and I would, or Fan Expo or C2E2 in Chicago, and I would do the convention circuit. And every time I went to a convention, I felt so alive. I felt so excited. You know, it was something new, it was fresh. I was making connections, meeting people, and it would suck. I would have to go back to work, and my bosses, who were awesome, by the way, my bosses were just wonderful. They noticed the change. They noticed that I was really getting excited during the calls or whatever, even dealing with the 80-year-old ladies from Texas, and they just saw that I had a passion and a fire for this type of material, and I was 32. I'm 34 right now, but 32. I said to him, I go, I need a change. I need to do something with my life, and I need to go back to university and just do something. And they're like, that's a good idea. You're great at your job. You do wonderful things for us. You make us laugh, so it's all good. Just do what you're passionate about. And so I did. I applied to the University of Windsor. I got accepted to the double major of visual arts, communication, media, and film. You have to realize, though, I came from a computer background going into visual arts. We're talking traditional media. We're talking painting, drawing, all that stuff that I had never done unless I was like 5 or 6 years old. Different change of pace. The filmmaker side of things was a little easier to work with. But I've been having a blast with the university. I've refound the fire that I had before, the passion that I had before, and what I'm working on at university, what I'm doing with the show, is kind of tying together. Eventually, it's going to work together, where if I can find a job in the entertainment industry, which I have some good connections, and I've written a few scripts. I'm hoping that'll work out well, but that's in the future. And we'll see what happens down the road. I still have 2 more years left. I still have a lot more shows to do, podcast-wise and interview-wise, and who knows what the future's going to hold. As long as I still have a passion to do it, as long as I still enjoy what I'm doing, I'm going to keep doing it, even if I don't make a lot of money on it, which was why Patreon really does hopefully support me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's awesome. So you mentioned having connections. So I assume you've probably built a lot of those connections through your podcast, through reaching out, through conducting interviews with different people. Is that a safe assertion?
Yeah, that's what you have to do with a show like this, like yours, like mine. You know, you have to make those connections in the industry, no matter what industry it is. You never know who you're going to get on your show. You know, you can't be afraid to just sit back and say, okay, I have to do a show weekly. Okay, great. Who am I going to get?
Mm-hmm.
Not sure. I'm booked for the entire year.
Wow, awesome.
That's been happening for the last 3 years now, and that's because the community knows what this show has in store for it. You know, they know my style. They know the fact that I'm an easygoing interviewer, but I can ask the questions that can make them pause during an interview to, do that stuff. But that comes with experience. That comes with practice. That comes with screwing up, and I've screwed up a lot in my time. Learning experiences,
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's awesome. So, what was the kind of trigger for starting this podcast? You started in 2008. What was kind of the initial moment when you're like, I think I'll do a podcast interviewing these people?
Literally, it was just asking my friend if he wanted to do a podcast with his website, and a website database
From heaven upon you, no loud voice speaking.
Furthest from my mind. What it came down to was, okay, well, once I thought of the idea, it came to me saying, okay, well, how am I going to do this? I mean, gosh,
Mm-hmm.
what technology do I need? And is a podcast even really a viable thing to do? And it was back then, still is.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was like we had a database of websites, of email addresses, and I really wanted to make sure that I came off on the right foot. So I was doing template of emails, I was mass emailing people, I was doing the scheduling. It was a lot of initial work to do all of this stuff too, and but it was fun.
You're telling me starting a podcast where you interview people in every episode is a lot of work? This is news to me. What are you talking about?
Try doing a podcast that had a news segment for 15 minutes beforehand while the guest was waiting patiently, and it lasted for over an hour and a half after that.
Oh my God. Wow.
I had shows that were going for 2.5 hours. Longest show I had was 4.5 hours.
Wow. So, that is impressive.
Yeah.
I won't be keeping you that long today, just so you know. So
yeah. Go ahead.
Feel free to interrupt me at any time. You're the one who's done 600 interviews. I'm on number 7 here. So.
Hey, lucky 7.
Yeah, lucky 7. So this is the one. So you obviously you started with a focus on comics, and then from there it just kind of broadened: film, music, video games. Is comics your first love, or is there are they all your children that you love equally, or is there a particular aspect of geek media that you are the most drawn to?
No, comics are my first love. There's no. I should specifically say web comics are my first love, and online comics are my first love. I was never much of a graphic novel comic person until Witchblade. Actually, Witchblade was my very first series that I actually got into, and I really enjoyed it. And then I got into the old style '90s Terminator, Aliens. that type of stuff.
Okay.
Predator, Alien, Terminator series that they had. Maybe Magic the Gathering as well was another comic I was reading too. For me, I consume so much content that it kind of blurs for me. So.
Cool. Well, I'm glad I don't have to ask the super divisive question. Then I was prepped and ready to ask that, and you shut that down. So that's good. We can.
Well, if I had to choose, I would say DC was. I enjoy DC better.
Okay, you're doing good. All right.
Although I like the Avenger films. Don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah, no, I'm a huge fan of the Marvel film.
Marvel movies, yeah.
I'm super stoked that they're finally making decent DC movies.
Yes.
And I'm super stoked even more about the upcoming DC Universe TV shows. Have you been following all that action? I know you have.
Oh, I love Arrow. Love Arrow. When they introduced the Flash and I saw that 5-minute trailer, I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome.
Yeah, I was like, oh man, this is gonna be awesome when I saw that teaser for the Flash, and then I saw the actual full 5-minute preview, and oh my gosh, that looks. What about? How are you feeling about that one?
Well, I'm a little leery about that. I think it'll be a real challenge for him, because when you think Gotham, you think Batman, obviously, but this is young Batman. This is before Batman. This is about Commissioner Gordon, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, well, it is.
So the fact that they're introducing it from his point of view is actually a very big gamble, because you have a very young Catwoman, which is kind of ironic that she would be a thief way back when, but okay, fine. You have Riddler, possibly Joker, possibly Penguin, and all that other stuff. So I don't know. It's going to be a true challenge if they do the same writing as Arrow. If they can incorporate that somehow, then I'd say the series might have a chance. But this Gotham series might go the way of how Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. went in the beginning, where it's too slow for what people are expecting.
Well, and basically the premise is kind of silly if you think about it, because it's basically, oh, let's do a Batman TV show. Yeah, Batman TV show, but without Batman.
What?
Basically, that was my reaction when I saw it. I know I did watch the trailer, and I think it has promise. Yeah. But I'm like you. I'm a little leery of that, and so we'll have to see. But I do. I have high hopes for Flash. I don't have time. I have three young kids, so I don't have time to follow all the TV shows I want to. So I haven't been following Arrow, but I think I'm going to have some kind of Netflix binge-a-thon.
You're definitely gonna have to give Arrow a chance, because initially it may seem slow. It isn't, but you get through that first season, and the second season just blows your mind. It's just the actors they received for it, especially the actor playing Flash. They did such an amazing job with the casting. It was incredible, and the fact that they go through Arrow or Green Arrow when he was on the island, they really dove into that character extremely well, and they could have gone so many different directions, but they did a great job.
Awesome, that's cool.
And I'm trying not to spoil it for you. You really have to watch it.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I watched I think the first couple episodes, and then I wasn't able to keep up after that. So I think I'm gonna schedule a binge Netflix viewing and catch up on all that. Mm-hmm. So you've been doing your show since 2008. So you have a wealth of experience of just all the different aspects of conducting interviews, of doing your podcast, of releasing videos. Is there, because I think all of us who do creative things, there's always the end result. There's always that moment where you're like, oh yeah, that was worth it. But there's also that part of it that you're just like, okay, I just need to get past this so I can get to the stuff I really enjoy. What is the part that you think you find kind of the most tedious about your project?
A couple of things. Setting up the podcast page to have the proper, because I do all the images myself. Like I ask the creators, I grab the images, I put it into my template, and I I put it on the website. And that, making sure that the content in the actual page itself is proper, that because I usually write it, day of post type deal, making sure that the links to their websites are proper, making sure that if they've said more than one link, I put it in the show notes. And then the other outside of things, which is very tedious, is putting it up on Facebook, putting it up on Twitter. Even though Twitter and Facebook are linked for me, I'm going into Tumblr now as well, and I'm actually in process of adding a different theme to the site, because I've had this theme for a good 4 years now, and I love the theme, but I need something different and new, and just something a little more graphical than what I have. And I think I have a theme that works well for what I have. We'll see if it works out.
So you're telling me 600 episodes later, this doesn't stop. That stuff doesn't stop getting tedious? Come on, man! I'm looking to you. You're the one who's been there, who's been.
No, it gets extremely tedious. Don't get me wrong.
I'm kidding.
If I haven't mentioned this, I'm the only one doing all of this. Well, it may say two geeks talking. It's just one person doing all this stuff.
The other geek is whatever geek you're interviewing at the
exactly.
moment.
Thank
right?
you. Finally, someone gets
it. So it's oh yeah. I hear you loud and clear, and I have nothing but absolute respect that you've been able to do that yourself for so long. I think that's a huge accomplishment. What was there any particular moment when you started to really feel like you're starting to get some kind of presence and some kind of recognition online?
It's been a slow build. I get some recognition. I think the very first time I got personal recognition was at a Kids Read Comics convention in Detroit back in 2010 or 11. And I walk up to a guy, and I was doing quick interviews there, and he goes, I've heard of you. I've listened to your podcast. I'm like, you have? Which one? I'm like, someone's listened to my show? Oh my God, it's a miracle. And so for me, it was just like, wow. And then I think a testament to finally getting, I guess, some name recognition or whatever would be being able to go up at comic conventions or scheduling people that I would never think I would have access to come on the show. For me, one of my favorite interviews, and I'm sure you're probably going to ask this, was I had interviewed him before, and at C2E2 and Fan Expo, and he's one that kind of inspires me. Is Ryan Somer from Blind Fair Entertainment, Least I Can Do, Looking for Group, The Gutters, the-gutters.com, and just I had him on the show for episode 100, another milestone, and he could only give us 30 minutes of his time, and so I was like, for me, I'm usually seating my pants, winging these questions. No, I was like, okay, I got these questions. I started off with a really strong question, and it went from there. And I had a co-host at the time who was a guest co-host, Barb from ZilliaTales.com. She helped out, and that was one of my favorite ones. Lara de Souza, the other half of Lisa Agnew, Looking for Group. Just an amazing artist and fun guy that I love talking with at conventions and just on his Ustream show as well. I just, he's very personal, very easy to get along with. That was episode 126. I spent a good hour talking with him, and he was just really opened my eyes to how the industry's changed in 25 years. So it's crazy from a digital perspective, I should say. So.
Yeah. That's
Sorry, what was your question?
I forgot it. It was no. So those are some of your
some favorites.
I think you were. See, there you go, being your own interviewer again. I think back and. So you mentioned some of your favorite episodes you've done. What were, and maybe you don't have to give any names, but were there any particular ones that stood out as, oh my gosh, that nothing went right with that one? It just all went wrong. Have you had any like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have. 3 times. 2 or 3 times. It's not that I went badly. It was. For me, and like yourself, you want your guests to talk, and the one thing I unfortunately can't stand is a creative person that, I love their work. They're very passionate about their work, but they're introverted. They have a difficult time expressing themselves, which is completely understandable with the creative community. You deal with that a lot. But so I figured, okay, first time jitters, understandable, and I was getting one-word answers. So try doing that for an hour, trying to pull questions or pull answers from them. It was difficult. So I'm like, okay, not a problem. Had the person back on again a year or 2 later, and it was the same thing.
Oh, really?
It was a little better, but just not quite as much. And that's understandable.
Yeah, probably not one of your biggest challenge. If it's happened only 3 times isn't too bad over the course of 7 years?
6 years. Don't make it worse than it is.
Oh, what would you say is kind of the biggest challenge of doing your show?
Trying to stay fresh, trying to get questions that are interesting, I think, is the key factor. Sometimes I stick with a batch of questions, and I like to see what the responses are. I'm putting together a documentary film as well about called Little Person Amongst Media Giants, and I have a set 4 questions for that, and I'm going to finish the B-roll of the filming. Hopefully, this coming Fan Expo. I'm not trying to rush it. I just need extra. I need extra filming. That's just the way it is. And so I've asked 4 questions that have got some really great responses from some famous people as well. And so for me, I'm taking a creative process class right now, and I've grabbed a good amount of questions from that class that's actually giving me some great responses from more guests. So I'm trying to evolve as best I can, rather than the same answers. What's your comic all about? What's your summary? Blah blah blah. Yeah. I still throw those in. That gets it going. But for me, it's all about, and I'm sure you do this as well. It's active listening, trying to pick something pops into your head as someone's talking about something, and that just changes the way an interview looks or feels, and it can really open up a story that maybe they didn't want to tell. That's happened to me a couple of times where it's been like an eye-opening experience, and I think the first time that happened for me, it was a very personal story for the creator. He was talking about his daughter who has a medical condition, and he included her in the comic. And for me, it was kind of strange, because the particular comic was more about old superheroes.
Right.
And so I asked about that, and he goes, "Well, that's about my daughter, and I wanted to make her smile." And it was like, hang on a second, I got a little tear here. It was only audio, but still, it was one of those moments like, wow, that. Then he goes, that I've never told that story to anyone. You're the first. I'm like, well, I feel special. So.
Wow, that's really cool that you can that you're able to capture those kinds of things. So it kind of sounds like you kind of have to find that balance between, because I think listeners like, some level of consistency, some level of predictability. They like to have some sort of, they want to know what to expect in some sense. But I think there's also that balance you're talking about where, okay, there's consistency, but then there's also monotony, and you wanna not find that balance there and keep pushing forward in new and exciting ways. So that's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So this is Patreon podcast, and naturally we're going to talk a little bit about Patreon. So one of the questions I like to ask, because I'm monotonous, is
you're not that bad. Come on.
Thanks. I didn't think so until you said you're not that bad. So it's so you have your Patreon page. How long have you been on Patreon?
Good question. It's maybe almost a year. I think it just started. I just started a little bit ago. Not too. No, about maybe early this year, 2000, maybe December, possibly when I started. I forget.
Okay. Yeah, it's so when people ask you, what is Patreon? How do you explain it?
Well, the generic answer, well, it's like Kickstarter, but it's not, because you actually get money. Is a good thing. It's mainly a way to support a show, support something you are enjoying. It's a way to give your money towards something that is usually free. The time and effort is usually not that expensive when it comes to a Patreon page. And if you've followed me all these years, if you've really enjoyed what I've done, and if you want to see more guests that you personally love and that I will track down and or get a restraining order from, no, it hasn't been that bad. They got to find me first. Anyhow.
The border to Canada. Oh wait, he lives.
Already here. Anyhow. No, it's about, if you want to support me, if you want to support the show, and if you feel that I deserve your money, and you've already given your time to me, then by all means, please do so. And hey, it still remains free if you still want to listen and watch the show. I'm all for that. I just appreciate that you took the time to visit me here, and if you support, wonderful. I really greatly appreciate it.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's a pretty accurate assessment. Now, so with Patreon, there's a couple different features that Patreon has, and if you're familiar with Kickstarter, then some of this will be familiar. Just like on Kickstarter, there's certain incentives or certain kind of thank you type things that you can send to people who are supporting you via Patreon, and and so there's some things you can do through Patreon where you can do that, and so you've got a few different options here. Do you want to just kind of briefly just talk about some of your favorite incentives that you offer?
Yeah, they're probably not that great. I have been meaning to reorganize and change them up a little bit here. One of the things I'd like to do is to include maybe a person that decides to pledge this amount, if they would like to be an actual host of the show. I think for me, it comes down to, do they have the time and money to do so? And no one's done it just yet, but the option is always available at our $50 level. That gives them at least an hour with one of their favorite creators, or at least maybe a guest that I'll have upcoming on the show. gives them easy access to ask them anything they want. And what other chance are you going to get other than possibly a Q&A at a comic convention or something like that? Or maybe if you happen to be good friends with them on a Facebook or a Twitter, the option's there. Another one that I have here that I'm sure no one else has, because if they do, I'll be extremely surprised, since I created the book with Byron Wolf from 1977, thecomic.com, is about 2 or 3 years ago, no, 3 years ago now, or 4 years ago now. Wow, 4 years. Oh, jeez. We did a comic cookbook, a webcomic cookbook called Webcomics What's Cooking, Feeding Families City by City, and we grabbed 60 of the best creators we could get from the webcomic community. They gave a one-of-a-kind custom comic and their own recipe that they really enjoyed, which, by the way, comic creators love sweets. Seriously. We have, like, of those... Exactly. It's like 120 of this 120-page book. It has to be at least half of that is about cookies, cakes.
Right.
There's even an actual rum recipe as well, like a eggnog recipe. So
nice.
Alcohol, go figure. And that's at $15, and there's only a limit of 150 left. So I mean, for something like that, it's a one-of-a-kind book you will not see unless you either see me at a comic convention or you happen to be in Chicago and Byron happens to have them as well. So
that's awesome. And this is physical. This is a physical book that you'll send them.
Yeah, it's a physical book. I will actually mail to them, and that's kind of separate than something along the lines of if they want to provide questions for upcoming guests, which I do provide the people that are supporting, and if they send me questions, I ask them in an interview and give them the proper props for that, if that's the word I'm looking for.
For credit.
Yeah, credit. Thank you. That's good.
Another feature of Patreon is Milestone Goals, and so this is basically your way of saying, hey, if we per episode, or in your case, this amount per month, this is what it'll enable me to do, and whether that's equipment upgrades, or I'll be able to spend more time or money, investing in the content. And so I see you've got a couple milestones here. So the first one you list is paying rent at the $100 per month level. And man, if you can find an apartment for $100 a month, that is awesome.
Well, I think that's a little misleading. It's actually paying rent for possible. If I could get rent around here, even
the cost of living in Canada these days, jeez,
is actually pretty bad. Pretty expensive, I should say.
Right. No, this will cover the website hosting, email addresses, and just kind of like basically the overhead of a website and podcast and all that stuff for sure.
Yeah, and there is one I do want to get an upgrade for my audio equipment right now. I'm using a Zoom H4n, which is the secondary thing. I'd love to upgrade to the H6n, which has way better battery life and has multiple XLR mic support, up to 4, actually up to 6, I should say, with the extension. If I can get that, then that'll completely change my way of doing interviews, especially multiple interviews. That way I don't have to keep going back and forth between myself and the person. That way I can just give them a microphone and say, here, talking to this. I did have other milestone goals where I would love to get to San Diego Comic-Con. That is my ultimate goal. But it was getting to San Diego. It was getting to Comic-Con. Let me just short form it. With better equipment as well, because I'm really looking at that Canon 5D Mark III.
Okay. Yeah.
Just because I've used it before and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
That would just really improve my visual quality. It would improve the fact that I could do so much with it, and it would put me into a different level of productivity of content creation as well, and it's a process.
And these are all things that, even though it's something that goes to you directly and your equipment needs, I mean, obviously it spills over into the end product, which is why they're, why you have all these people watching your videos and listening to your podcast in the first place, is because, they appreciate the content. So if there's ways that they can help you improve that content even further, I mean, hey, that's awesome. Yeah. So where can they find your Patreon page?
Well, the Patreon page. Glad you asked that, because I was eventually going to get to it, but here's the Patreon podcast, so I'll let you ask that one. It's patreon.com/Two Geeks Talking, and that's the word 2, not the number 2.
Right. Cool, and of course we'll have the link to that in the show notes. So where else can our listeners get a hold of you, or our viewers get a hold of you on the internet? I'm sure you have a website.
I wouldn't be around if I didn't have a website. I think everyone needs that, but it's tgtmedia.com, or you can go to twogeekstalking.com, but the main website is tgtmedia.com. Mm-hmm. You can also find us on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/tgtmedia. You can also find us on iTunes by searching Two Geeks Talking. Again, it's the word Two Geeks Talking. And I'm slowly moving over interviews from our previous channel on YouTube, which is youtube.com/TGT webcomics. So there's hundreds of interviews there that I need to bring over, and I just haven't had time to do that.
Yeah, I'm sure that's a time-consuming task there. And then you're also on this thing I hear about called Twitter.
Yes, the Twitterverse has been interesting. I'm surprised the series of tubes that is the Twitterverse hasn't collapsed yet. So, yes, Twitter I'm on. You can find me at Kurt Sasso, K-U-R-T, not with a C, or I will kill you. Or our other channel, which we have to use more, which is at TGT Media, but at Kurt Sasso will give you a majority of it. And our Facebook page, which I almost forgot, you can do it facebook.com/Two Geeks Talking. Again, all spelled out.
That's great. And of course, like I said, we'll have links to all that in the show notes. You can just check that out at patreonpodcast.com/Two Geeks Talking. And of course, again, spelled out TWO. And one other thing I totally forgot, but I do like to ask my guests is I asked you ahead of time for a favorite inspirational quote, and I like this one in particular, and I'll tell you why in a second. But what is your favorite inspirational quote?
I think my favorite inspirational quote is something I ended up making up myself, which is everyone has a story to tell. It's up to me to bring that out. I think that's what it says.
Yep. Yeah, that's okay. Good. That's what I have here in my show notes. So. No, sorry, go ahead.
I can remember. It's amazing.
I think that's great that your inspirational quote is from you. You came up with it. I think that's fantastic.
and it's kind of a mantra that I have. It's something that you talk to so many people, and I know you'll get to that. This is a great show. I think it's going to have a great future ahead of it. Mm-hmm. And I really feel that once you get you're there. You're getting there with your guests. You're getting there with your questions, and hey, you can only get better. Unless you have something that severely hampers your ability to do a podcast.
Yeah.
You can only get better. So it's awesome.
Yeah. No, I really like that thought, though. I really like that thought of everyone has a story, but it's not. It's in a lot of cases, it's just not going to get told until somebody brings it out of them. And like you shared about that one interview you had where somebody shared a pretty personal story about their daughter and her medical condition, and it was a touching story, and you brought that out because because that's what you do, and that's like he said, that he hadn't told anyone else. He told you, and you brought that out, and I think that's great, and that's what those kinds of shows give you the opportunity to do. Well, I'm not going to take up any more of your time, but I am so happy that we were able to schedule this very last-minute interview, and I've had a total blast talking with you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So just thank you so much for joining us, Kurt, and thank you, listeners, as well. You can find all the show notes and links to Kurt's Patreon page and other projects at patreonpodcast.com/Two Geeks Talking. And, of course, you can find us on Patreon, iTunes, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube as well. Just go to patreonpodcast.com. All the links are right there. And until next time, keep on pursuing and sharing your creative passions. All right, thank you so much. That was fun.
You're still live, by the way.
Oh, I am live. That's right. No, that's okay. I like to have a little chat for our just special extra content for our video
Sure.
video subscribers on YouTube. So
I can talk.
yeah, I have to. Okay, so my friend here just entered the office. Because we have another podcast we record after this called Pop Mockers. It's a comedy show, and he's cracking up at me, and I need to know why. So, Quant, why are you? What was so dang funny that you? Oh, okay, you made me really self-conscious. He was listening to a voicemail from someone that cracked him up. So, making me super self-conscious here, dude. Not cool.
Gotta realize, as a podcast host, you can't be self-conscious. I forgot to mention I was fairly introverted for a good majority of my show. For the first 60 episodes, I was actually very introverted. It wasn't until I had to take control of the show that I was like, "Oh my God, I actually have to do this myself."
Yeah. Yeah, I have a secret theory that basically all extroverts are secretly just introverts who just kind of have to get over it and pretend to be extroverts. I don't know if that's true or not, but
actually, no, I think it's fairly accurate, to be honest. Like for me, I think the real test was C2E2 in Chicago when I did those 80 interviews in 3 days. I will never do that again. I will do 40 interviews in 4 days, but I will not do 80. I think I did 80 interviews at C2E2 that year. I did 50 interviews at Kids Read Comics in Detroit.
Wow.
And I did 60 to 70 interviews at Fan Expo that exact same year. So by the time I got to 2011, I was almost out. I did my 200th interview with a Playboy artist actually at Fan Expo, a 250th interview, and it was just like, holy jeez, like I can't believe I've gotten that far. And I think I will be getting my 300th video interview this year at Fan Expo, or I should be pretty darn close to it, or if not over it, because I haven't actually done a lot of my day 1 and day 2 interviews from last year. So.
That's awesome. That is awesome. I totally had a train of thought that I totally lost, and
I'm sorry.
Bummed because I'm sure it was the most epic thing ever that anyone's ever said.
Was it about interviewing? Was it about?
I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was, but I don't know. I'm not gonna worry about it too much. I have to say, huge thanks though for making it so last minute. I had someone else lined up and ended up having to reschedule that, so I'm kind of like frantically figuring out, okay, I want to make sure I release something this week, and so I'm like, okay, maybe I'll just do like a bonus episode. So I'm like, okay, maybe I'll write a song about Patreon, or I made a puppet for the last interview, because the last interview was a puppeteer, and so maybe I'll just do like a bonus episode with that puppet guy, and I actually tried before I heard back from you, and those are terrible. So those will never see the light of day.
Yeah, I had one interview where the guest canceled, episode 14. I called it "Jumping the Shark," and I ended up getting a couple of guests on, comic creators on, and we just shot the stuff, and
That's
cool.
Cool.
We just had fun. But yeah, like, what is it, 200 I know. Like, I have to recalculate all of my interviews. One thing I didn't mention that your watchers might enjoy is every August on my anniversary, we do an entire month of called the TGT tournament, and we're going to be going into TGT tournament number 6, where we take the last 50 interviews and we put them in a battle royale against each other. So they're like voting against each other, and I actually had my server almost crashed twice, one back-to-back years, because one of the rounds went down to the last second, and the person won by 2 votes.
Oh wow!
And it was like 6,000 votes apiece. It was insane. I couldn't believe it. It was pretty crazy. But I try to do theme months. I try to do stuff like that. I tried to do an actor month a couple of months ago, but actors fell through, unfortunately.
Such flakes.
Actually, it was more like their PR and agents were saying, you're currently filming your series right now, so we can't actually allow you to do any interviews.
Okay. Well, come on. Oh, man.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I'll see him at Fan Expo and says, this is what happens. This is why you make me wait. You screwed up my entire month. Just kidding.
Nice. So that's cool though. So you're finding kind of ways to kind of spice things up and keep things fresh, like you said, and having themes and stuff. That's great.
The hardest part is scheduling, especially the current challenge I'm doing, which is the 42 interviews in 42 days thing. I've done 18 of 42, and I'm scrambling just to get people, because I have to release content every single day, and I think I have enough for next week, but the week after that, I may have 5 interviews. So if you want to help me out, please, by all means, come on my show.
Hey, sure. Well, let's.
I need you, Chris. I need your help.
You're right. I don't know what I could bring to the table, but that'd be fun.
Hey, sure. I've had newcomers, I've had veterans, I've had anyone in between, and people that don't think that they're relevant enough to come on the show. And I'm like, well, no, they're like, I can't believe you asked me, or I can't believe you replied to my email, and I'm like, why not? You're a person, you're creative, you want to, you're passionate about what you want to do. Like, there was one person that sent me an email, and I responded right back, and she's like, and I got a Skype call with her, and I forget, I think it was Caitlin from Moonlight, and she was like hyperventilating over Skype. I'm like, are you okay? She goes, I can't believe it's you. I listen to your show all the time. I'm like, I appreciate it. I love your talent. You're very good, and thank you very much for keep downloading. I appreciate it. And, well, haven't you downloaded more? No, I'm just kidding.
That's funny.
But I've been. I think you're my 6th or 7th interview that I've done, possibly. So.
Okay.
I really need to get out there more. It's hard to do that. So.
Cool. Well, I was stoked to see you put it out there pretty quickly, and we're able to. I actually got several interview requests today, and yours came along, and I'm like, oh, this guy's responding real quick. And I'm like, yes, maybe he'll be great for my last-minute interview, and it's great. I mean, I had a total blast talking to you. So
yeah, no, you got some good questions. I like your style. You got great intro music. I really got to get my intro music back. I haven't done that in so long.
Cool.
And yeah, no, if you need any help, if you need any other, if you need to chat or whatever, I'm always available. You caught me in class because I was really bored, so I'm like, I need to get more exposure, so this is a perfect chance to do that.
Cool. Awesome, man. Well, I'll let you go, but like I said, I had a blast talking to you. So thanks and thanks again.
Thanks so much, Chris. Really appreciate it. Send me your. I need you to send me your image. If you can send it through Gmail to me, and
Okay.
once this goes live, I'm not sure when are you posting it.
It'll go live tomorrow, and I'll be sending Facebook announcements and tweets out and stuff.
Well, I'll post it on our page there, and we'll get that going.
Cool. That'd be
Thanks so much, and best of luck with your other shows there. And if you're available sometime next week, Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, Saturday, Sunday, let me know what your schedule is like, and I want to get you on our show just so you can, see how I do things. If you steal anything, I will find you.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, we can switch seats. That'd be awesome.
Sounds like a plan. All right, talk to you later, Chris. Ciao.
All right. See you. Bye.